In a bustling airport filled with travelers rushing to catch their flights, an unsettling scene unfolded that left everyone stunned. A young black girl, barely in her teens, found herself caught in a confrontation with airport police over what seemed like a minor misunderstanding. Voices were raised, and tensions escalated quickly. To the shock of onlookers, one officer's actions crossed the line, tearing up her passport and forcefully handling her in a way that no child should ever experience. But amidst the chaos, someone in the crowd was watching closely, someone who wasn't just any traveler. A Navy SEAL, trained to protect and defend, couldn't stand by silently. What happened next would change the course of this shocking incident and reveal a story of courage, justice, and unexpected heroism. Stay tuned to hear how this moment unfolded and what the Navy SEAL did to stand up for what was right. The airport buzzed with a mix of disbelief and unease as travelers watched the scene unfold. The young girl, clutching the remains of her torn passport, stood frozen in shock. She had been traveling with her mother, who was just a few steps ahead in the security line, unaware of what had just happened. The officers claimed they were following protocol, but their harsh treatment didn't sit right with many in the crowd. Whispers spread as bystanders questioned why such force was necessary for a child. Among them was the Navy SEAL, dressed inconspicuously like any other passenger. Years of training had sharpened his instincts, and something about the situation didn't feel right. He observed the officers closely, noting their body language and the fear in the girl's eyes. Though he didn't know her story yet, he could see enough to know this was far from fair. The question loomed: what would he do next? The girl's mother turned around, panic sweeping over her face as she realized something was wrong. She rushed to her daughter, her voice trembling as she demanded answers from the officers. The response she received was cold and dismissive, fueling the tension in the air. Passengers began pulling out their phones, recording the scene as the girl sobbed, clinging to her mother. The officers insisted that the torn passport was invalid and claimed the girl had acted suspiciously, but their harsh tone and actions were hard to justify. The Navy SEAL stayed quiet, blending into the crowd as he assessed the unfolding situation. He noticed one officer nervously glancing at the phones recording the scene, while another seemed determined to stand his ground, his voice growing louder as he tried to control the narrative. The SEAL's mind raced as he weighed his options. Was this just a misunderstanding, or was something deeper at play? For now, he observed, knowing his moment to act might come at any second. The tension in the terminal was electric, the crowd growing larger as more travelers stopped to see what was happening. The mother pleaded with the officers, her voice cracking with desperation as she begged them to reconsider. But her words fell on deaf ears. One officer, visibly agitated, stepped closer to the mother and daughter, his tone sharp and authoritative. The girl, still clutching the shredded remains of her passport, cowered behind her mother, her small frame trembling. The Navy SEAL's jaw tightened as he watched the scene spiral further out of control. He couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't just about airport security, it felt personal, targeted. His training taught him to act swiftly but with purpose, and he was nearing the point where silence was no longer an option. Then, one of the officers moved to detain the mother, claiming she was obstructing their process. Gasps rippled through the crowd, and the SEAL instinctively shifted forward, his eyes locking onto the officer. He knew it was time to step in, but he also knew the stakes were high. The room seemed to hold its breath as the moment of confrontation drew near. Just as the officer reached for the mother's arm, a firm but calm voice cut through the chaos. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." All eyes turned toward the Navy SEAL, who had stepped forward from the crowd. The SEAL introduced himself, mentioning his background in the military without revealing too much. He questioned their actions, asking if tearing up a child's passport and intimidating a family was truly the proper protocol. The crowd murmured in agreement, their support giving weight to his words. For a moment, it seemed like the officers were reconsidering their approach. But then something unexpected happened. A man in a suit, claiming to be an airport official, stepped in, backing the officers, He accused the family of presenting fake documents, escalating the accusations. The SEAL narrowed his eyes, sensing something off about the man's demeanor. The mother, on the verge of tears, insisted their papers were legitimate, pleading for someone to verify them. The SEAL's instincts told him there was more to this than met the eye. The conflict wasn't just about security, it felt orchestrated, as though someone wanted this family stopped at all costs. The stakes were rising, and the SEAL knew he had to uncover the truth before things spiraled even further. The tension in the air was thick as the Navy SEAL took another step forward, his gaze fixed on the so-called airport official. "If their documents are fake," he said evenly, "let's verify them the right way. Call someone with proper authority, and let's settle this." The man hesitated, his confident facade cracking for just a moment before he doubled down, insisting the matter was already under control. But the SEAL wasn't buying it. He turned to the crowd, asking if anyone had seen similar incidents before. A few travelers nodded, sharing stories of unfair treatment at the hands of airport staff. It became clear this wasn't an isolated case. At that moment, a senior airport manager arrived, alerted by the growing commotion. The SEAL quickly explained the situation, pointing out the torn passport and the heavy-handed behavior of the officers. The manager demanded to see the family's documents, and when the mother produced the damaged passport, he scanned it himself. The result? It was entirely valid. The accusations of fake documents fell apart instantly. As the crowd began to cheer, the SEAL noticed the man in the suit quietly slipping away. Something about his departure didn't sit right. Acting on instinct, he discreetly followed, catching him handing off what looked like a bundle of confiscated passports to another individual. The SEAL immediately reported it to the manager, who called security to intervene. The twist? The man in the suit was part of a larger scheme targeting vulnerable travelers, exploiting them for personal gain. His involvement was exposed, and the mother and daughter were not only cleared, but offered an official apology. As they prepared to board their flight, the SEAL quietly disappeared into the crowd, leaving behind a family grateful for his intervention and a system now under scrutiny. The story wasn't just about justice, it was about courage, standing up for what's right, and the power of one person to make a difference. As the mother and daughter boarded their flight, a wave of relief washed over them. Though shaken, they were thankful for the kindness of a stranger who had refused to turn a blind eye. The other passengers, inspired by what they had witnessed, shared supportive words with the family as they walked through the terminal. Meanwhile, airport authorities began an internal investigation into the fraudulent activities uncovered by the Navy SEAL. The corrupt individuals involved were quickly detained, and steps were taken to prevent similar abuses in the future. Travelers who had experienced injustice came forward, their stories shedding light on systemic issues that needed change. The Navy SEAL, blending back into the flow of travelers, reflected on the day. For him,